Hello, we are live here with Friends of Trees and Blueprint Foundation. I am Yashar. I am the Executive Director of Friends of Trees and I use he, him pronouns.
And I am Jason Stroman. I also use he, him pronouns, and I am the Program Director for the Blueprint Foundation.
Thank you so much for joining us for today's Earth Day Tree Walk. We want to thank our sponsor this week, PGE, and their Peak Times rebate program. Thank you so much, PGE, for your support. So we are here today to talk about the power of partnerships. We're going to get a little bit into what the Blueprint Foundation is about, our Friends of Trees Blueprint Foundation partnership, the communities we come from, and who knows what else. So I think I'm going to take it over to Jason, and he's going to give us some background on Blueprint Foundation.
Sure. So the Blueprint Foundation is a nonprofit started here in 2015, and it's sort of like the evolution of a mentoring program that my fraternity brothers and I had started several years prior at Roosevelt High School over in North Portland. And I belong to a historically black fraternity, and when we looked at some data that came out in 2010, we were really troubled by some large discrepancies in graduation rates for our students in the city of Portland, specifically with our black male students. And so we started an affinity group there, started working with a large group of young men, and it proved to be really successful and fruitful, but we were very limited what we could do out of our own pocket. So we did some research, realized if we established a nonprofit, we could go after, grant funding and government money that had been earmarked specifically for diversifying the green sector. And so that's what we did, and we started Grounding Waters as our first mentoring cohort with an emphasis on water quality and environmental science. And grew from there to include career explorations in the trades and green infrastructure. And so in those early years, we were looking for activities, obviously, to educate and engage our students in stewardship and learn about all these different issues that were disproportionately impacting communities of color specifically. And water quality was a big one, as well as tree canopy. So when we were looking at ways to engage them and not only learning about those issues, but taking an active role in improving tree canopy and water quality within the Columbia Slough watershed, specifically where most of our students lived at the time. It didn't take much research to figure out that Friends of Trees was already doing some great work in the area, and their neighborhood plantings provided the perfect opportunity to engage our students in that work locally in their own neighborhoods, where they could feel more of a sense of ownership and immediate impact, as well as long-term impact. One of my favorite things to this day is to drive by a site in North Portland right off of, what's the street? There's a Mason Lodge on, not Williams, next one down. It'll come to me. Albina, where we planted 16 trees in our first outing with Friends of Trees. And that was like almost 6 years ago. And to see those trees from the starters to where they've grown now, it's like a perfect example of like what the kids get to experience, being able to see trees they've planted in their neighborhood and around the city grow, and provide the benefits of an increased tree canopy in the city. And so we've enjoyed that, continue to build on that, and made it a regular part of our programming to engage in the tree plantings, the neighborhood plantings, and then working with different folks at Friends and valuing the partnership and realizing there was potential to build there. We started to deepen that relationship and get more of our students involved in some of the workforce development aspects that Friends had to offer, with training as assistant crew leaders, and then eventually becoming involved in summer inspections. And it's really been a great opportunity for our students to dig a little deeper and get more involved, develop their leadership skills, all while doing something they enjoy that they would probably do if they were homeowners or had the ability to just beautify their own spaces. And so it's been a very fruitful and ever-evolving partnership that we really value.
And I'm curious, Jason, what sparked your initial interest in trees and the environment?
Well, that probably goes back to my childhood. I'm originally from back east, but I grew up mostly in the Portland area. And one of the things I really enjoyed, we used to move around a lot, but I really enjoyed getting involved in like scouts and camping. And then we lived overseas for a few years in the Middle East, and when we moved back, we got a house that actually had about an acre of woods behind our house, and that became like my refuge. I really enjoyed going back there, exploring, making my own O&Ls, carving out of wood, and
Nice.
just, bearing stuff in the forest, planting stuff. And, back in the late 80s, early 90s, being a black youth in the Beaverton area, socially was very stressful. There was not a lot of us. There was usually the only black kid in class. And so even if you're involved in sports or scouts, you kind of feel isolated socially. And so, as I became a teenager, there was, police harassment, that kind of thing. So having that space to just decompress and solitude and find peace where it was quiet and just get in touch with nature was very valuable to me. And so when we started doing this work with Blueprint, and just knowing historically how, our communities have been sometimes not had good access to these nature spaces, I knew it was could be a vitally important or therapeutic activity for our students who might not on their own venture out for one of the many thousand reasons, but if we facilitated the opportunity to explore the outdoors and provide, not only learning opportunities, but just opportunities to enjoy nature, going on hikes, things of that nature with their own peers and with, adults that look like them, that could be a very nurturing and cathartic and therapeutic activity, and it's proven to be over the last several years. And so, for me, it's, trying to provide and offer a lot of the things I wish I had when I was younger, but also, as I've been involved over the years, learning the benefits, the secondary benefits of, for the whole community at large, of increasing the tree canopy and the water quality, and how trees play such a big role in that. And so it's kind of a nice 2-for-1.
Yeah, I appreciate you opening up about your story. I was thinking about my background, being born in a war zone in Iran, and the solitude my family found was when there were ceasefires. We would go over the Alborz Mountains into the forest north of Tehran, and same thing, it was so calm. You're away from the concrete jungle and, a war zone, and it was so different, and it sparked my imagination. And going out there when we could, for me, kind of the same way, it really sparked my interest in the natural habitat, and I'm just so honored to be where I am, to work with people like you and with your story, and frankly, it allows us to learn more. The more people we bring from different lived experiences, I think the stronger the work becomes, the stronger the partnerships become, and we're really honored to work with Blueprint Foundation. And being new, learning a lot about the partnership, I'm just so excited for what the future might hold. And so do you want to speak a little more to perhaps inequity? And we put out a great video today on our Instagram highlighting this partnership, and there's a piece in there about environmental racism and access to nature. Do you want to speak to any of that perhaps?
Yeah, sure. So, a thought just popped in my head. You mentioned growing up in Iran.
Mm-hmm.
I just want I can't help but mention, so I mentioned as a kid I liked doing scouts. We actually lived in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia for a few years, and there was a local scout troop there for the Westerners, but camping in Saudi Arabia is a little different than the Northwest. There's no trees in it. We camped in the desert, and the first time we went out, we got caught in a sandstorm for all night. And so yeah, when you're out in the desert for a few years and you come back to somewhere like Oregon, you really appreciate trees on a whole nother level, because even finding shade, I mean, I lived there 3 years and it only rained 3 days, and it was 3 days in a row.
Wow.
And it was dry by the next morning. So yeah, just that experience as well just heightened my appreciation for the landscape we have here. I've been all over the world in the U.S. and there's nothing quite that compares to the Northwest as far as trees and these spaces we have. But that being said, Black and brown communities historically, both in Oregon, which we could talk all day about Oregon's history as an exclusionary state, and the fact that they didn't even allow black folks to live here, and some of those laws have been on the books until recent times. But even just throughout the country, historically, in the last couple hundred years, Black and brown communities have had a kind of nuanced relationship with the outdoors, where there's a lot of trauma that's taken place there. That's where lynchings took place, and that's where Klan rallies were happening. And so even though historically, culturally, the outdoors and the connection to nature has historically always been a part of our culture, we've been severed from that in a lot of ways over the last several hundred years, and uniquely in the American experience. And so and then you factor in redlining practices, especially in a place like Oregon. We recently had the opportunity to do a planting in the historic Vanport site, and students got to learn about that history and how after the flood, the black folks that remained here from Vanport were only allowed to move in certain areas, and those areas were the Albina neighborhood where the tree canopy was low, and it was right by the highway development. So those communities are disproportionately affected by pollution and all the things that trees help mitigate, as far as air toxins and shade to cool the water in houses. And so I think a lot of folks in the community, they're not conscious of that and realizing how much besides aesthetics and the nice comfort, like for just physical health, there's a big advantage to living in places with high tree canopy. And historically, in a lot of places, but here in Portland especially, those communities of colors tend to have the lower tree canopy in their communities. And so educating folks about that has been a really important focus of our programming, but also engaging in solutions and being part of the solutions and taking an active role in improving that quality of life in the areas where our students and families live has been really meaningful. And so and then they take that info home with them to their families and to school. And we did tracking our first several years of students and their grades, and across the board, students improved their grades in their science courses.
Wow.
Because they had a better base understanding or interest in how one thing affected the other. Something as simple as trees affected the quality of the water, the quality of the air, the quality of the value of their homes and their neighborhoods, things like that. And so we started noticing benefits beyond the obvious, that it was improving their school performance, and is just improving their social capital, being able to network, meet their neighbors who they might not normally meet. I think I've witnessed firsthand the impact of both neighbors who have moved into these neighborhoods and kind of contribute to the gentrification, have a different outlook on the students that are there, as well as elders in the community who may have been part of the population that survived the gentrification, who are now seeing 10, 12, 15, 20 black youth back in their neighborhood planting trees. Like, I've had people stop in their cars and be like, "What are you guys doing?" And when they hear about it, they're just fascinated and appreciative, because the trend for the last 30 years has been in the opposite direction. And
right.
So getting to be able to gather students from across the city, engage in these activities, and neighborhoods where their families have roots is also meaningful to the community members as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I'd be curious to hear if you have any memories of getting these youth connected to trees, and that aha moment, like, this is why we do this work, or anything that stuck out with you since Blueprint Foundation has launched.
Oh, wow. Well,
loaded question.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of those moments. I think one turning point is when working with folks like Rudy and Serby on the workforce development side, seeing that there was an immediate interest for students to take that jump from just coming to the plantings to taking an active role in the crew leading and the summer inspections, showed that the seeds we planted, so to speak, really kind of took root, and they jumped at the opportunity. They really enjoyed the opportunity to go out there and get paid to develop their skills and knowledge further. And not just with our grounding water students, we have a mentoring program. The one I mentioned originally, we transferred and have been doing at Benson High School for the last 5 years or so. And last year, several young men in that group jumped on the opportunity. We're talking elite athletes and guys that have plenty of things to do with their time, who, guys like Makai and Even and Jamari, who are all like doing amazing things in their own right. They saw this opportunity to, do something in a community and make money and try something different, learn a new skill. And they all like really enjoyed that. And so just, reiterating what we know and believe from the beginning, that like these opportunity gaps are just that. They're not achievement gaps or ability gaps. It's just really about access and opportunity. And so when we provide that opportunity, our kids will jump all over it and thrive, and so
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing. And, if we're doing good for the environment as well and building community, that's a great bonus. And so,
Well, I know people like Rudy from the Friends of Trees staff are just elated to be involved with this partnership, and it brings new voices to the table, and we want to do more and more of that. And me personally, coming from an immigrant and refugee background, I love the idea of the universality of tree planting, and it's an opportunity to bring folks from different backgrounds together. When we think of newly arriving immigrants and refugees and having them connect with perhaps Black Portlanders and learning about the background of the history of Albina and the land we live on. That's really beautiful to me, and those are the kind of opportunities that I think partnerships create and the community we build by planting trees together. And yeah, that just really excites me. I'm just so excited to talk about partnerships today. And again, we're here live for a tree walk to celebrate Earth Month with Jason from Blueprint Foundation, and I'm Yashar from Friends of Trees. And I really appreciate Jason opening up a little bit about your background and how much this partnership has meant to you between Friends of Trees and Blueprint. And are there any key takeaways from our involvement as Friends of Trees in this partnership that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I mean, one of the great things for me, and Blueprint, we're a small organization, so we've spent the last several years partnering with pretty much all the other environmental groups doing work around the city, with the watershed councils. Friends of Trees is unique in, something as simple as planting trees, they've scaled out on such a wide scale. They're having an impact all over the area, throughout Oregon, and the different counties. And so it's afforded me the opportunity to work with a lot of diverse staff members and forge relationships and get an inside kind of peek at the organization. I've always been curious, how is this organization so big? Like, everybody knows Friends of Trees, and I got to appreciate, the passion that the staff have for the organization, but also, being a very diverse staff, having a passion to see it, progress and incorporate equity on a deeper level, on a more institutional level, a corporate level. And so, over the years, they've been planting that bug in my ear. We really want to try to diversify our board, and I learned about the search for a new executive director that they took their time with. They were very diligent about making sure, they found someone like yourself who was committed to equity. And, as I've considered at this point in my career and learning things, serving on boards and board servantship, I really started to contemplate, maybe this is a place where I could provide that unique community perspective, as well as, ethnic diversity. And, eventually, I'm happy to say, just this last year, I finally did join the board. And I'm really excited to see, that they are committed. It took me about a year. I really wanted to make sure it was the right fit, not just for me, but that Friends was really committed long-term to centering equity in the work they're doing. And I was really pleased to discover that they are genuine about that. And so, yeah, just being a part of that process is really exciting and rewarding, and knowing that, I have something to offer into this great vehicle that Friends is for not just, increasing tree canopy, but, building community and building partnerships like ours that can provide more opportunities to communities that probably wouldn't ever engage in organizations like that on their own. So that's been the big thing, seeing, students like Lachey and Joshan, who were featured in that video, really engage and take advantage of the programming opportunities that we've developed over the last couple of years through the partnership is encouraging. And those guys are just great. They're such great role models for our younger students. both of them are seniors this year that'll be graduating, and I'm just really excited to see what the future holds for them, because again, we, 5 years ago, pitching, young teenagers of color on the environmental science program, it wasn't the sexiest, pitch in the world, but we knew once we got them engaged that, some of them would catch a fire and catch a bug. And, that's happened with both of those two individuals. Yashar is applying to colleges with the intent of pursuing an environmental science degree. And, he did some work last summer in addition to the Friends work. He was working out at Leaf Botanical Garden, and he was just so enthralled by it. He had the encouragement to start writing a book, which was amazing because I love writing, and really excited to see what becomes of that. Lachey has ambitions of being a pediatrician, and which is partly fueled by the fulfillment she's got with working with younger kids and being a mentor to younger students, and a lot of the educational opportunities that we've provided our teenagers to teach younger students has really, sparked the fire in her to work with youth, and she's just a natural. She's kind of great at that, and seeing the students coming up behind them, like, not just being exposed, but seeing it normalized for students and young adults that look like them to go into these fields and be passionate about, environmental justice issues that are critical for all of us, but especially for our communities that are disproportionately affected, but not very well represented at the professional level in the industry. And so, for me, that's like the really exciting part, knowing that we're planting, just like trees, we're planting seeds, and knowing that you might not see the fruit of that labor for years to come, but when you see them start to blossom and bloom, it's like really rewarding. And so,
I love that.
For me, that's the the why that keeps us going, keeps me going. So yeah.
Frankly, we work in a very white industry, and these workforce development pieces, this skills training, diversifying the industry can only bring about bigger and better things. And going back to your comments about being on the Friends of Trees board and having representation from Blueprint Foundation on our board, we're so lucky to have a voice like yours on our board, and the perspectives that you bring. And it's my hope that this partnership only blossoms and grows. And being new to my position, I'm just super excited to see the work in action. And I just want to thank you again for joining us today, and I want to thank folks watching for coming along for this tree walk on Earth Day. And one more time, I want to say thanks to PGE and the Peak Rebate Program for sponsoring today's event. So thank you so much. Thank you, Jason, and we'll see you around for the next one.
Absolutely.